The Oracle Network.
Hey there, this is Frankie Sparks.
And this is Sky Eisenberg.
We are Shoot the Flick.
Yes, an official Paradoja podcast.
Every Wednesday, Scott and I introduce each other to a brand spanking new movie that the other one has never seen. We talk about it, give our thoughts on it, and also share some behind-the-scenes fun facts.
We want you guys to come enjoy watching the movie with us.
Yes, so check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Shoot the Flick. Check out our weekly episodes every single Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere else you can find a podcast.
We hope you guys give us a listen soon.
Bye!
Hey, Rainbow Warriors. This is my disclaimer. Beyond the Rainbow is a true crime podcast. It's not suitable for young children, and maybe not even for some adults. I tend to swear like a sailor, and I'm kind of proud of that. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. Welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host, CJ. Find me on the socials as either Beyond the Rainbow Pod or Rainbowcrimes. Should you be able to help support this one-woman show, please check out my website at beyondtherainbowpodcast.com. On the site, I have links to my merch store for shirts, mugs, and other fun items, and a link to my Buy Me a Coffee account. Buy Me a Coffee is a pretty cool site. It allows me to write up short true crime stories and post them. Kind of like a blog. You don't even have to buy me a coffee to check the post out. Also, add your email in there to be alerted when I do drop a new post. But if you do decide to support, it can be a one-time thing, all for the price of a cup of coffee. Also on my website at beyondtherainbowpodcast.com is a photo gallery of past cases and a list of missing but not forgotten LGBTQ+ people. Should you like to be a Rainbow Warrior reporter and do a missing but not forgotten segment, please contact me on social media, or you can email me through my website. This episode's missing will be reported by Rainbow Warrior and podcast host of Cause of Death. Hey, wait, she also hosts another podcast called Lucky Charms. So please give a glittery welcome to Jackie Jean.
Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. I have just a few updates before I tell you about this episode's missing but not forgotten LGBTQ+ person. Our first update is a missing case CJ presented, Season 6, Episode 3, The Murder of Stephen Simpson. Trans boy Evan Leno from Bartlesville, Connecticut, had just walked away from his home on July 12th of this year without his phone or anything. Evan resurfaced in Portland, Maine safely on August 9th. Evan felt his transitioning was not being accepted in the home he was living in with his aunt, so he took off to stay with friends. It would seem that Evan was picked up by a long-haul trucker, and he hitched a ride all the way to Maine. It's kind of a long story why Evan and his siblings were living with his aunt, but the short version is that Evan's mom and dad were no longer together. His dad lives in the state of Virginia. His mother had gotten into trouble with the law for some felony drug charges and has been trying to better herself. While trying to better herself, she asked her sister to care for her children. It seems now that Evan's aunt doesn't want to give the children back to either of their biological parents. It's sad that this is what Evan has been trying to go through all while transitioning. Hopefully, the adults in his life will figure out their shit for the sake of Evan and his siblings. The next update is on trans woman Haley Elaine Worthy. CJ covered Haley's missing case in Season 5, Episode 1, The Murder of Jason Fox. Haley was traveling from Georgia to Michigan December 15th, 2020. She found out that the Ohio River Bridge, between Ohio and Kentucky was out, and she was looking for an alternative route. She made contact with friends at 3 a.m. on December 15th. She told them she loved them all and would see them soon. That was the last contact anyone had with Haley. In May of this year, a car was pulled from a pond in Perrysburg, Ohio. The submerged car had a body in it, and the body was 31-year-old Haley Elaine Worthy. Ronan, the missing person from last week's episode, has been found safe and is back at home with their family. The final update is on missing Donald Lee Izzett, whom CJ reported missing back in Season 3, Episode 3, Florida's Deadly Duo. Donald, who went by Donnie, was just 19 years old when he disappeared and was reported missing by his mom in July of 1995. Donnie was helping a guy named George Shane Gunther move from Mississippi to California. Donnie and Shane had been in some type of relationship, and Shane was reportedly very abusive to Donnie. Donnie, who was in Santa Monica, California in May of 1995, had called his mom sounding very distressed and crying when he spoke to her. He told her he just wanted to come home and to please send him money so he could. Donnie's mom never saw him again. In October of 1995, a highway patrol speeding ticket arrived at her house in Donnie's name. He was apparently pulled over for speeding in a Mazda Miata registered to Shane. After some long researching into Shane, Donnie's mom was finally able to find and contact Shane's grandmother. The grandmother said she had witnessed Donnie and Shane having a fight at the family's farmhouse in Macomb, Mississippi. 24 years went by, and Donnie's mom still had no real answers as to where her son was. But she was persistent in her investigations. In 2019, Donnie's mom found Shane's college roommate. He came forward with some enlightening news. He told her and authorities that Shane shot Donnie 3 times and killed him after an argument. Then he helped Shane put Donnie's body into a high-heat fire pit and burn Donnie's clothing and his body. He then led authorities to a road not far from Shane's family farmhouse. Remains have been found, and although they were found in 2019, they have yet to be tested to see if they are Donnie's. We will keep you posted if they ever confirm or deny that the remains are Donnie's. This episode's missing but not forgotten is 14-year-old Kurt Lewis from Claremore, Oklahoma. Kurt is considered a runaway. Kurt is a trans boy. He has black hair that may be short on top and shaved at the sides. He has brown eyes. Kurt is 5'3" and weighs between 110 and 120 pounds. Kurt went missing on July 23, 2021, around 10 p.m. near Chambers Terrace and West Bell Star Drive in Claremore. He had gotten into an argument with his parents the night he disappeared, and his phone has been powered off ever since. Kurt might be in the area of Heller Park in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Should anyone have any information regarding Kurt's whereabouts, please contact the Claremore Police Department at 918-341-1212. Back to you in the studio, CJ.
Thank you, Jackie Jean. I can't tell you all how many times when reading or listening to a story about a spouse or lover that's killed their partner, I have thought, damn, why didn't they just divorce or break up? Usually it's because of greed. Can't divorce or break up because then I'd have to split assets or kids. But is it really easier to kill someone and try to get away with it than to just verbally end the relationship and move on? I don't think so. The place this episode's case comes from is Toronto, Canada. And I did cover it on the Brew Crime podcast a few months ago. But just in case you didn't get a chance to pop over to Brew Crime to hear it, I wanted to cover it on my show for all Rainbow Warriors. It's a sordid tale, really. The end reward was thought to be the ability to have a fresh relationship with a lover, one that came free of the excess baggage of a long-term relationship. Still, it should have been easier to use words to dissolve the 11-year relationship, rather than to kill and suffer the consequences. 30-year-old Nicola Puddicombe, who went by Nikki, and 17-year-old Ashleigh Petuluk worked at a popular chain grocery store in Toronto. It's called Loblaws Supermarket. Nikki managed the store and Ashleigh worked in the kitchen department. Nikki was Ashleigh's supervisor. Nikki had a reserved, quiet-type personality, which, as management, served her well. Ashleigh, although she was just a part-time employee, was definitely outgoing, and she had quite a few friends among the store staff. A little bit about Ashleigh. Her parents split up when she was young. Her mom was raising her and her little sister as a single mom. Ashleigh's little sister was born deaf, so Ashleigh learned American Sign Language as a way to communicate better with her little sister. Ashleigh decided she wanted to be a sign language interpreter someday and a support worker for the deaf. Although Nikki was more of an introvert, Ashleigh's personality was very inviting, and the two women became friends. There was an undeniable chemistry between the two women, in spite the differences in their personalities, their lifestyles, and their age. Nikki was in a relationship with a man named Dennis Troy. Her and Dennis had been together for 11 years. Ashleigh was an out and proud lesbian. But the two still found common ground somewhere along the way, and they developed a best friendship. They even became roommates along with a guy named Patrick Knowles. I guess it's pretty expensive living in downtown Toronto, so to go in a 3-way split for a 3-bedroom apartment seemed like a financially sane thing to do. However, I was a little surprised that Nikki didn't live with Dennis, especially since they'd been together for so long. I'm not really sure why they didn't. Some of my research suggested Dennis was a little controlling and he liked his space, so I guess that could be a reason. 36-year-old Dennis worked as a GO Transit Special Constable, which is someone kind of like a security guard that keeps peace on public transit. They're responsible for keeping people safe. Dennis was a pretty big guy. He stood at 6 feet or 1.82 meters. That most likely was a great job for him, especially if he liked to control things. Some articles hinted that Dennis had ties with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, which made it sound like he had one hand in the law enforcement bowl and his other hand was in some questionable illegal doings. Not that every single Hells Angel member has done crime, but they are a 1% motorcycle club, so I imagine most have. Loblaws Supermarket. Occasionally, the employees of the supermarket chain like to do stuff together after work or on weekends. In June of 2006, some of Loblaws supermarket employees planned a camping trip. Nikki and Ashleigh thought it sounded like fun and they joined the group. Nikki and Ashleigh were doing everything together these days. One of the nights of the camping trip, things started to get flirty between the two women. Then after a few drinks and the allure of the stars, a sexual awakening between Nikki and Ashleigh started to happen. This now made them intimate partners in addition to roommates, besties, and workmates. The two women became each other's worlds. But Nikki still had Dennis, too. Once the women were back at their apartment, their intimacy continued. One night, Nikki told Dennis about her affair with Ashleigh. Dennis wasn't angry. In fact, he kind of liked the idea, and he proposed they turn their relationship into a threesome. Ashleigh, being a lesbian, was all, no, fuck off. I don't know why, but I feel like nearly every man wants to turn his girlfriend or wife's dalliance with another woman into a threesome. So, for the time being, Dennis and Ashleigh shared Nikki. Dennis would come to the apartment a couple times a week, and when he was there, he would insist on Nikki's total focus. Then Ashleigh and Nikki would be together when Dennis wasn't there. It seemed to work out. For a while. By October 2006, just a few months later, Dennis and Ashleigh started to form some deep-seated resentment against each other. Neither wanted the other one around Nikki. Ashleigh would write in her journal how much she hated Dennis and how she wished he would just drop out of Nikki's life. She'd write how Dennis didn't deserve to be with Nikki. He didn't treat her as well as she did. She wanted Dennis gone so badly. And when he'd come around, Dennis was basically just an asshole to Ashleigh. And he'd pull Nikki away if Ashleigh tried to have a conversation with Nikki. As for Nikki, she was getting lucky and busy in everybody's bedroom. But now, she was starting to complain about it. She felt tired. Well, girl, no wonder you're fucking everybody. Sorry, I just added that. She felt tired of bouncing between Dennis and Ashleigh. Nikki told Ashleigh she didn't want to be shared by her and Dennis. She told Ashleigh it was her that she wanted to be with. Putting that into 19-year-old Ashleigh's head, Nikki tried to persuade Ashleigh to kill Dennis. They'd talk about it. Ashleigh would dodge the conversation and then Nikki would drop it for a while. But then a few days would pass and she'd be right back into Ashleigh's ear. Seems to me Nikki should have womaned up and used her big girl words to get rid of Dennis. It really wasn't fair to either Dennis or Ashleigh. At the supermarket, young, passionate, but not savvy about the way the world really works, Ashleigh started to tell co-workers that her and Nikki were going to kill Dennis. She said she'd kill him and Nikki would call 911. Ashleigh's co-workers took it as Ashleigh fantasizing. They figured it was just her way of blowing off steam. In the meantime, Dennis was going through some stuff of his own. Someone had slashed his car tires on October 25th, 2006. Dennis thought it might be related to his connection with the Hells Angels. Probably some kind of warning. For now, he just shrugged it off. The following night, October 26th, was Dennis's night to stay over with Nikki. Before he showed up for his time with his long-term girlfriend, Nikki told Ashleigh, "Tonight's the night. You have to kill Dennis. It has to happen." And Ashleigh said, "No, I'm not going to do that." So Nikki stormed out of her room in a huff. Ashleigh, stressed out by Nikki asking her to end Dennis's life, did what any normal person put in that predicament would do. She smoked some weed and she fell asleep. Ashleigh woke up to pounding on her bedroom door. Nikki then opened Ashleigh's door and told her, "It's done. Dennis is dead." And then she shut the door and she walked back to her own room. Ashleigh sat right up. She was still in a sleepy stone fog, but she was trying to come to terms with the information Nikki had just poured over her. She shook herself awake enough to walk down the hall to Nikki's room. Once inside, she saw a bloodied Dennis laying on Nikki's bed. Nikki was working up the emotions she figured she was supposed to have, and with an Academy Award performance, she called 911 hysterical. When the police showed, the investigation didn't turn up a whole lot. There was apparently no evidence of a break-in, and Nikki told the police of Dennis being involved with the Hells Angels. She also told them about his tires being slashed the night before, and Dennis saying it might be some kind of warning. Later that night, all three of the roommates, Nikki, Ashleigh, and Patrick, were taken down to the police station. It was time for questioning. Patrick was released after a couple hours. The police didn't think he had any involvement with Dennis's murder. Nikki, who was no longer crying hysterically and really didn't even seem that upset anymore, just looked down and listened to detectives. She wasn't nodding. She wasn't giving any body language or any facial emotion. She just remained quiet. Ashleigh was kept in the interrogation room for almost 20 hours. Each hour in that tiny room, she denied what the two detectives were throwing at her. In that 20th hour, she was exhausted, she was hungry, and she was thirsty. And she finally said, "Okay, I did it. Nicky had nothing to do with it." Ashleigh was throwing herself in front of the bus to save Nicky, the woman she loved. Now that's dedication, or naive stupidity. Police, satisfied with Ashleigh's confession, let Nicky go. 6 months later, though, Nicky would be arrested again for Dennis's murder. But during the 6 months, a lonely Nicky hooked up with their third roommate, Patrick. Dennis was dead, Ashleigh was in jail. She had to fly her freak flag somewhere, and Patrick became her flagpole. Oh, don't think on that one too long. It's not a pretty visual. 19-year-old Ashleigh would go on to serve jail time while she awaited her trial. At her trial, 2.5 years after Dennis's murder, Ashleigh's confession tape was not admissible in court due to her not being offered legal counsel in a timely manner. A couple other articles also said she wasn't Mirandized. That was a big oops on the Toronto Police Department. Ashleigh was no longer holding on to the dream life she envisioned with Nicky someday. She had heard that Nicky was hooking up with their roommate Patrick, and Ashleigh couldn't believe it. A very hurt Ashleigh finally started to see who Nicky really was, and she decided it was time to put herself before Nicky. Ashleigh purged everything. She said she lied to the police, and actually she had felt badgered into a false confession. She said Nicky killed Dennis, and Nicky had been planning to do it for months. She told the court that Nicky was bugging her to kill Dennis, but she couldn't. And even though she didn't like Dennis, she just didn't have it in her to kill anyone. The jury found Ashleigh not guilty, and she was released to try and rebuild her life and clean her reputation. When Nicky was arrested, she was discovered to be pregnant with Patrick's baby. Ashleigh went on to be the star witness in Nicky's trial. Even though Nicky's defense was able to use Ashleigh's taped confession as evidence, they tried to say, "See, Ashleigh admits she did it. That clears our client." The prosecution argued back, "The only thing it proves is that the women maybe committed the murder together, not that Nicky is innocent." Nicky was on the court's hot seat for the murder of her boyfriend, Dennis Hoy. She was accused of delivering at least 6 full-force blows with the blunt end of an axe into Dennis's head, which incidentally was the same axe Nicky and Ashleigh had taken on their camping trip. The camping trip with Loblaws Supermarket, where their romance first started. Nicky was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. She received life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Nicky reached out to the Court of Appeal, but she was denied another trial. One final note for this case. The LGBTQ+ community, they were a little pissed at how media handled this case. Their headlines seemed to shriek the same narrative. Lesbian axe murderer arrested. Lesbian axe murderer on trial. Lesbian axe murderer found guilty. The problem with these headlines is they were demonizing lesbians, who in turn became victims of hate. Those who already thought lesbians were mean, hateful, and violent had their thoughts confirmed with these types of headlines. Besides, Nicky wasn't a real lesbian anyway. She seemed to be more polyamorous or bisexual. I guess polyamorous axe murderer doesn't have the same appeal as lesbian axe murderer. Our Quickie crime this episode comes to us from Southern California. Nestled deeply between Palm Desert and Mexicali, Mexico, is a community of people in a place called Slab City. Now, I'm a native California, born and raised here. I've lived here all my life with the exception of about 3.5 years. In all those years, I have never heard of Slab City. But it's kind of fascinating. Slab City is an unincorporated, off-the-grid squatter community in the Sonora Desert. It was established as a weapons training camp by the Army during World War II. The military created cement slabs all over the land, thus the name Slab City. Today, it's a lawless city in the Imperial Valley. Like any town these days, drugs are prevalent, meth being one of the faves. The city's motto is, "The Last Free City." The folks that live there use battery generators or solar panels for electricity. A dilapidated building was turned into what is now called the Internet Cafe. It's one of the locals' favorite places. It serves coffee, maybe food, and it offers electricity from the owner's solar source during certain hours of the day. This allows Slab City's residents, also called slabbers, to charge their phones, connect with the internet, play a video game, or what have you. Most of Slab City's occupants are considered campers, and they live in RVs or trailers. This unique community was home for a while to a 21-year-old trans man named Poe Black. At least it was until May 11, 2021, when Poe's body was found floating in the Coachella Canal. The canal backs up to Slab City. Poe's death wasn't an accident. He had been sexually assaulted and stabbed before being tossed into the canal. According to friends, he was last seen on May 6, wandering around alone after his partner and other campers relocated. On May 7th, there's claims that a huge amount of blood was found at the nearby hot springs, but apparently other campers weren't informed about the blood discovery until several days later. And almost 2 weeks later, it wasn't until investigators came out to Slab City with pictures of Poe's body that they found out about Poe's murder. Investigators were seeking someone to confirm Poe's identity. A friend of Poe's said he was stabbed 7 times, including in his genitals. Many who knew him called Poe a warrior. They said he would stand up for indigenous rights, LGBTQ rights, black rights. If it was a good cause, Poe would do everything he could to help. Poe was an artist originally from Nashville, Tennessee. Poe's Instagram page was filled with pictures of his dog, his art, and of his crowdsourcing for an upcoming top surgery, which Poe had done before he left Tennessee for Slab City. Top surgery was to have his breast removed. After Poe's surgery, he posted, "I'm broke as fuck, but thriving nonetheless." Friends of Poe's in Tennessee said Poe went out west because that was a dream of his. He went to Slab City in particular because living off the grid was also a dream for Poe. No one has been arrested, and so far no suspects that I know of are even being investigated. There's nada on this case. I'm wondering where his partner went and the other campers that relocated. You would also think that some evidence came from around the hot springs area, where the huge amount of blood was found. And as we all know, someone knows something. Very little news coverage, if any, on Poe's case has been seen. A few articles on the internet, many that were from LGBTQ+ institutions, are out there. But aside from that, it's like a poor young trans man isn't worth covering. Not true here, Rainbow Warriors. We know Poe matters. And the only way we will ever find justice for Poe is to talk about him. Get his name into the universe. Please pass the word about Poe around. And if anybody has any information, contact the Imperial County Sheriff at area code 442-265-2052. Rest in power, Poe. Love you, Rainbow Warriors. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay, trans, and live your truth. Unless you're a murderer.